Hi, this is John Hawkins with Gateway Counseling Center. This is our first YouTube live video. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and certified addiction professional in the state of Florida. I also do performance coaching to athletes and entrepreneurs. Our center's been here about 10 years. We do individual counseling, couple relationship counseling, family counseling, with a wide variety of mental health issues, relationship issues, emotional issues. And we started trying to do some videos like this to try to put out some information that has been, in my opinion, lacking from a lot of the clients that I've gotten over the years that have come in with different things like trauma and PTSD, different, couples therapy issues that they've been to the therapists that read books and, for years and decades in some cases, and they still haven't been given the right amount of information. And then I've been really fortunate enough to train with some top people in the country and, have a lot of clients I've worked with a variety of issues over the years, have given me a skill set that, I'm very grateful to have, but that very few people are going to get to be able to work with. So I wanted to provide an avenue to get some more of this information out to people, give people a chance to just ask me any questions they want, and just really provide, a valuable resource to anybody out there. I know sometimes people are struggling financially, and they don't have the financial resources to come to see somebody like me. It's a big financial investment on my part, training in all these trauma trainings and things like that. So I wanted to provide some useful information and skills that people could use at any level, that could really help them with whatever situation they're struggling in, whether it's grounding from trauma, whether it's getting out of a bad relationship, whether it's overcoming the biggest block they have to success. I'm working on a program with a friend of mine right now for entrepreneurs, business owners, big achievers who, get stuck in these certain places. No matter how creative, talented, intelligent they are, they have these certain blocks that just frustrate the heck out of them why they can't get past this. So, those kind of things too. I put up a quote, thing last week on Instagram asking, what's your biggest block to success? So I think that's one of the questions I'm going to answer today is, what those are. And so the question, what came up around, it came around fear, I think, for this individual. So one thing I've learned over the course of working with people for so long is there's really, if you break it down outside of fear of death and dismemberment, there's only like 3 core fears. And so what happens is we chase around all these intermediate fears all the time. I'm afraid of him or her leaving me. I'm afraid of being broke. I'm afraid of my kids getting upset with me or losing my job. None of these are core fears. These are what I would call intermediate fears. So what they'll do is they'll trace you to your core fear. And the reason this is important is if you don't know what your core fear is, you can't face it. So it's like hearing a sound and I don't know where that sound is coming from, so I can't address and get to safety because it could be over there, it could be over here. So really the 3 core fears that you can walk everything out to outside of death are fear of being helpless and trapped, not having any power, fear of aloneness and isolation, and fear of seeing myself as inadequate, not good enough, or others seeing myself, seeing me as inadequate, not good enough. So those are it. So that's a quick shortcut to get to your core fears. Now, what do you do when you figure out what those core fears are? Every single case I have found, the reason we're so afraid of those things is because there's some time in our history where we experienced 1 or all 3 of those core fears, and we had to dissociate, or we got kind of frozen in time there, and we're terrified of ever ending up there again. So I know from my own life, one of the things I've worked on, particularly this last year, and I'm still working on it, is fears around finances and money. And so one thing I've learned in working with people over the years is it has nothing to do with money. So money is just the trigger or the symbol to send you to that place. And so what I found was this fear I had around money, when I really was able to break it down, was that I was afraid I was going to end up trapped and helpless, not be able to do things, which would lead me to feeling alone and isolated, disconnected from people I want to spend time with, hang out with, because I wouldn't have the financial resources, and that then I would feel not good enough and others would see me as not good enough. And so I was able to trace that down to real early times in my life, like 4, 5, 6 years old, where I was in those situations where I felt those feelings. And then what happens, those feelings are too much for us, and we split those off and dissociate. And so I would tell you, I mean, it's a very simple process. The first part of this, what I'm saying, is, to say what would happen then, and to keep following it out until there's nowhere else to go. So if the fear is she will leave me, okay, and then what would happen? Well, I would feel sad, okay, and then what would happen? That if you just keep going, you will hit a dead end somewhere where you end up at one of those three fears or the whole ball of wax. And if you stay connected to that, notice that if I really start to feel that, where I'm feeling it in my body, and I let those emotions come up, it will slowly start to bring up what, where that takes you, where you got frozen. Part two is then you want to just stay with that and track that in your body. Just let that energy keep moving through and releasing until it either diminishes, because sometimes there's a lot there and you can't just do it in one setting, or that it releases if there isn't a whole lot there for whatever the particular thing is. And if there's more than you can do in one setting, just make time to do that on as many occasions as you need to until you can finally release that. And what happens to all of us, you could be an intelligent, creative adult male, no matter how old, and you don't act. You get frozen in this helplessness and avoidance. Maybe you don't look in your account. There were so many times I didn't want to look in there because I was afraid to see what wasn't in there. And that's not a really mature way to deal with your finances. And so what that happens is every fear you don't address or deal with will come true. So if I'm afraid of being broke and I don't deal with my finances, guess what? I'll be broke. If I'm afraid of being abandoned and I push everybody away, guess what? Everybody leaves me and abandons me. If I'm afraid of making a mistake when I speak in public, I get so nervous I make a mistake. So it's dealing with these fears head on where we can finally break out of helplessness and say, wait a minute, the reality is I can never be in that situation again. I'll never be 4 or 5 or 6 where I could just be locked in my room and cut off from everything. I can just walk out of any room I'm in, whether I've got money or not, and start to take action. It sounds so unbelievably simple, but when you are frozen in that place, you are that 5 or 6 year old, and you just will not act, or you'll just dissociate, numb out, do something else to dissociate, numb out, food, alcohol, pornography, whatever it is, just to disconnect from those feelings. But now those feelings are my resource to take action and to do something about it. So, this kind of example today of this question, which was a great question, is one of the things I want to provide for, you guys out there, is to say, okay, here's something relevant that people talk about all the time. People talk to me about their fears constantly. And when I learned how to really cut right through it and get to these 3 core fears and then what to do with it, it really expedited things so fast. Otherwise, you could just end up spinning around in this intellectual pursuit, So if it's I'm afraid of, somebody leaving me, I'm afraid of my, being broke. It's you can just ruminate on that forever. And then you talk to a friend or family member, blah, 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 and you're just looping on it. And you never deal with it, you never get better. Because this stuff is really neurological, it's in the body. How we survive is what screws us up now. And there's so much more I can talk to you about that, and I'll speak to that in other videos. I want to nerd out on you and get too much science in here and lose everybody. But think of that today. Just take that one bit with you, that what is my core fear? Not my intermediate fear. What is it that I ultimately fear? It's got to be one of those 3 things if it's not death. And why do I fear that so much? When have I felt those fears? When I start to imagine ending up in that place, what do I start to feel inside me right now in this moment? And then how to start to feel that. Now, the one caveat I would give you is if that's got trauma in there, you don't want to just sit with that and start to get overly activated or just numb out. So that's where you'd want to just stop, go focus on other things, see somebody like me or get another resource to help you with that. But there's so much that you can do on your own that you don't need to see somebody like me when you learn how to do it. I teach all my clients how to do all this stuff so they can get rid of me. They know they can come to me for anything they need. They can come back to me for stuff they need, but everything they need is inside of them already. It is unbelievable, and I will teach you more and more about that, but everything you need to heal from addiction, from anxiety, from depression, from trauma is already within you. There's a force inside of you that once you learn how to access it and use this energy that's in our body, will unleash and change your life, literally change your life. I did a session with a woman for this last week. I would pay several $1,000s if I could have put the session on tape. It was, I'm not exaggerating, at least when I say it was a life-changing session. This work is life-changing, so far beyond anything, any coaching, any other thing, as much benefit as there is to that. This is like life-changing at the deepest level, because she worked for so long learning how to let go and how to use this system that we all have inside of us. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Share it with anybody you think could benefit from it. You can email me at johnh@gatewaycounseling.com. You can go to the Mind Zone group, Gateway Counseling Center on Facebook. Make any comments and questions you have, Gateway C Center on Instagram, and I'll either answer those throughout the week or we'll use those for the next live video there. All right, have a great day, and thanks so much for listening.